Hey guys, Brandon Woolham with CCM Magazine. Today we are checking in with our friend Jon Shabaglian. How are we, man?
I'm good, bro. It's good to see you guys again. Just off about a 2 week trip in Israel that was madness and not advisable unless God's in it. So my mind's kind of blown, to be honest.
Yeah, we'll get into all that here in just a minute, but let's start with this new single. Just got out there recently. Adonai. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Adonai, Deliverance Song, I actually wrote with some wonderful from some wonderful songwriters in Nashville. You probably know Stephen V. Taylor, Sam Hart, and Taylor Scroggin. Stephen V's like a Grammy-nominated producer of Million Doves, but also a fellow Armenian. And so about a year and a half ago, we wrote a song, and it was actually during a time of some really personal loss in one of the writers' time, and this idea that God, that the same God, that ancient name of God, Adonai, is the same God who's present to heal in the present. And so we just felt like we didn't want to just write a song that would be consumed, but could be a tool for people as they're praying for friends or family who are going through some really broken times. And geez, our world's losing its mind these days. You know what I'm saying? So, but I tell you, I'm not this smart, because we wrote that 6 months before Israel was attacked. And a year and a half later, when I tried to release it months earlier, God totally stopped me. And then I got asked to debut it in Jerusalem. While a nation was in mourning during the October 7th remembrance of the massacre. And so you can only imagine, music's like the neosporin of the soul, right? And so we write music and we hope people enjoy it. But honestly, we kind of got an insatiable appetite for entertainment. I'm not really, that's not my primary goal. If I can, like it says about Acts 13:36, King David served his generation and then he died. There's something that musicians and musicians for God, or I like to use the word psalmists, can be a part of. Music's like the neosporin of the soul. And if you can help be a lifter of a head in a time of sorrow, that's way bigger than your Instagram streams. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I felt if it was crazy hard, but it did feel like an honor to share it with the land that he loves.
Was this a trip you already had planned before the attacks, or was it when the attacks happened, you said, something's
No,
calling me,
bro.
I got to get over there?
No, no, no. This is really like no natural logic. I'm not that awesome. I'm not that strategic. We wrote it again. So October 7th, 2023, it was, this crazy attacks in Israel. And we wrote this song, Adonai, Deliverance Song, 6 months before Israel was attacked. And then I tried to release Adonai this earlier, like in January this year, and I was like on the 1 inch line with Sam and the production. God totally pulled the e-brake on me, and I didn't know why. It was actually frustrating, and I didn't know that months later, these people that these amazing people that I had met in Amsterdam in 2023 at this global gathering of leaders that we could talk about later, that was fire, and it has to do with gospel advancer across the world for the next 10 years. Their name is Tom and Kate Hess, and they lead one of the longest running houses of prayer on planet Earth, and it happens to be on the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem. How about for Kingdom Real Estate? And she calls me months after I paused on Adonai, Deliverance Song, this year, and she said, John, they lead this house of prayer, and she trains harpists all over the world. Well, I started, if you remember, a work called Psalmist Mission. So we actually, on Adonai, we actually put 5 years worth of Psalmist Mission graduates that we mentored and discipled as the choir on the song. So it actually has mentorship in the song, in the sonic. But she actually trains harpists all over the world. And I hadn't heard from her for 10 months. And I get this message from her. She's like, I don't know, maybe it was in the spring of this year, early summer. And she said, hey, John, I was thinking of you out of nowhere. I was driving for 3 hours to go pick up harps. I was praying in the spirit. and felt a really strong impression I was supposed to call you and come ask you to be a part of our All Nations convocation. And it's our 30th anniversary in Israel. And I'm like, wow, okay. Well, 30th anniversary, that sounds special. All Nations, that convocation, that sounds not awesome. Jerusalem, what is that? I don't even know what that means. So I said, I'll pray about it. But these people are faithful folks, man. They have been flooding the Mount of Olives and Jerusalem with prayer and worship from around the world. And they haven't stopped praying since 1986. So that's pretty awesome. God has us pray, and worship and prayer go together like peanut butter and jelly, and it like births the mission of God. So I thought, okay, man, I don't take that lightly, man, if you felt a burden. So I started praying. All at the same time, my good friends at Worship Leader Magazine, Joshua Swanson, editor-in-chief of Worship Leader Magazine, Joshua, with Lexi as well too, but Joshua and Rachel Swanson, we had been working on some pretty major initiatives in Israel with assembling worship leaders from all around the world to worship Yeshua or Jesus in that land. We'd been working on that since I dropped Symphony of Peace. And in a really special way, God had connected some things. And he calls me out of nowhere and said, hey, bro, my wife, she's Jewish. She got accepted to Hebrew University. We're moving to Jerusalem. You mentioned you might be going. When are you coming? Oh, the answer is we're moving into a house 3 days before you get there. Do you want to stay at our house? I'm like, is this a joke? How is this possible? So, and then literally I got there like 3 days before they got this gorgeous home at like 10-minute walk from the ancient city with a grand piano in their room. And I'm like, Father, that this is too loud. So even though it was a stupid idea in the natural and missiles were in the sky and they canceled my return flight, I got a one-way trip to the Middle East trying to die, but I got a family back home and a ministry and Psalmist Mission to run. Yeah, at the end of the day, obedience is not really that stupid. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's, you got, and the Bible's packed with people who were recklessly obedient. And I just don't want to be the more self-centered musician. I want to be the faithful follower. And so anyways, bro, all these things synergized. I'm working with Worship Leader Magazine. They were actually there at the debut we got the debut Adonai Deliverance Song. We did the debut, the music video too, that included the psalmist that we discipled from California on that. We debuted it at All Nations Convocation and several other places, but there were leaders and delegates from I don't even know how many nations there in Jerusalem. And during this festival of Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Atonement, during this time of tremendous mourning, there was this convergence of pain, festivals that God had commanded, and the reminder that Adonai is the same God to be present to deliver. And can you imagine me to be the mailman to deliver something like that? Who the heck am I? So
yeah. How many different spots did you get to go lead worship while you're over there during that little 2-week stretch?
It was kind of a blur, but for instance, Yom Kippur is one of the holiest days of the year. There, it's the one day where we remember that where the high priest would go into the tabernacle, the Holy of Holies, and beg God for mercy to make atonement for the people and hope he didn't die. They would put a rope around him and hope he came out. I got to lead worship 3 or 4 times on just Yom Kippur, right? So from a worship leader bucket list, I mean, it's not about that, but like I pretty much did everything there. I led worship with the King's Harpist, which was a harpist ensemble of harpists from all around the world over the Sea of Galilee at this brand new hotel, and the owners let us stay there. They were so kind, called David's Harp. And I lead Psalmist Mission. I'm learning things about a mantle God told me to call that I don't even understand. So like of this Davidic tabernacle of David, this Jewish roots of a mantle I'm training in, and yet God's blowing my mind, and we're singing over the Sea of Galilee where Jesus was dropping the kingdom. Like, who the heck am I?
Yeah. Throughout this interview, we've mentioned the Psalmist Mission there a few times. Let's talk about that for folks who don't know what this ministry is you have out there in California. Tell us a little bit about it.
Totally, bro. Like I mentioned 6 or 7 years ago, I felt like, after I've been a recording artist, worship minister for like worship pastor for like 20 years, I felt like the Spirit said something really clear to me. John, raise up trustworthy psalmists. Now, that wasn't a word I used, like I mentioned, but he said trustworthy and he said psalmist. I understand trustworthy, didn't say it a lot. Psalmist, I I could get the idea. It felt like it crystallized what I didn't understand I was carrying. And I had these kingdom philanthropists make me start this thing on the side. I didn't need to, but I felt like this jacked up world didn't have enough, consecrated psalmists who knew His word, ran from sin, and loved their hurting world and loved God. And so Psalmist Mission was like the only two words left in my head. And this idea of taking a 9-month journey of a worship cohort to become more trustworthy in God's eyes. I feel like I'm looking at artist friends, recording artists, national leaders, regional leaders, acting as if Jesus said, "Hey guys, go ye and make content." But He didn't say that, bro. He just didn't say that. And when our kids start mutilating themselves and becoming non-binary and everything else, we just start doubling down and making more content. And I feel like we're spitting in the wind. I think we need to get back to what the Bible said. He said, "Go ye and make disciples of all nations." And if you are one, again, a disciple is a taught or trained one, a follower of Jesus, the one who act not when people are looking, not when the lights are bright, but you follow Jesus. Then you spend time with people who don't follow Jesus as well until they follow Jesus, and you teach them to do the same thing. So basically, I created a curriculum, and we do with Psalmist Mission. We have 9 pillars we train in, and it's 2 major things: pro music training, because if you represent an A+ God, you can't suck, right? And spiritual formation, because if you represent God, you can't be dirty. And I'm sad to say the green rooms I've been in and the concerts and things I've done in, and I got a lot of colleagues that feels like they don't think God cares about the other part. And we tell the psalmist about the one-hit wonder up in heaven, and it's not loving, and it's not kind, and it could be all those things, but for whatever reason, it's holy, holy, holy. And those angels are just doing what they're commanded to do or responding to what they're seeing. And so if worship leaders, worship artists, whatever we want to call ourselves, all this branding, I know a lot of people getting paid a lot of money and getting a lot of attention for this stuff, but I'm pretty sure that we're going to break His heart if we make it about us and our industry, instead of the Lamb who was pierced for our transgressions. And I'm confident now, and quite frankly, I can't be dissuaded. I've seen too much. I've seen miraculous hand of God in this calling. I want to be a faithful, a trustworthy psalmist personally, and I want to have raised up an army before I'm dead or He comes, that will do the same. And so for all you artists out there, Jesus isn't mesmerized by any of us. Because if we can do riffs on our guitars or our vocals, that's because He gave it to us. He's not blown away. He has joy in our hearts that we can steward that. But our identity has nothing to do with what we bring to the table. It has everything to do with whose we are. And you can't wash that off. You can't scrub it off. But you ought to live a life in response worthy of the calling you've received. And I'm going to say those to you worship leaders out there. We are the tip of the spear. Worship changes atmospheres. And I know that because I've been in ones with strongholds and realms that are full of strongholds. And your riffs aren't going to do anything to those things. If you sing and demons laugh, that's a problem. But if you sing because and out of your relationship with God, and you run from sin and you meditate on the scriptures and you follow God, when you sing, there's authority to make things move. There's authority to make blind eyes open for your friends who don't know Jesus and are obstinate against it. That will change the atmosphere. For those broken relationships that you have, worship will change those realms. I have been as an Armenian in the principality regions of Turkey and seen how music and the Spirit of God could even heal genocide divide. My own grandparents fled for their lives from the genocide, and now I've been in. I've been in the pubs in London on Halloween and seen the glory of God take over a pub in London with music and the Spirit of God. It can change the atmosphere. And then Madness I just saw in Israel. But you have to be walking with the Lord in when nobody's looking. So we tell the worship leaders, the psalmists we mentor, if you worship God when nobody's looking, there's power when everybody's looking. So Psalmist Mission has been an experiment in California. Now there's over the Psalmist Mission family is over 100. They lead and worship in more churches than I can keep track of, bro. Baptist, Pentecostal, Korean, Armenian, Ukrainian, Dominican, Haitian, Chinese, Korean, everything. It feels like a giant bag of Skittles. It's like a pre-heaven party. It saddens me that that typically doesn't happen in church. We're still pretty separate but equal, if we're honest. I think that's why we're not very powerful. But when a Korean leads worship with a Ukrainian, there's revelations of Jesus that happen just in that, not to mention unity. And this experiment of Psalmist Mission of bringing kindred musicians together from all the different tribes together in a 9-month journey. Discipleship for psalmists is not proprietary. It just seems like most people aren't doing it. They'd rather make a drop a record than spend time and disciple a psalmist. But this model, I believe, can touch many other regions beyond California. So if you guys are interested, psalmistmission.org, find out more information. The psalmists we discipled were the choir that we put on Adonai, Deliverance Song. Man, when I conducted them in a world-class studio I could have never afforded, I could feel a whole nother level than sound when they sang, bro. It's like if you do what God said, you've been banking on sound, but it's like he'll send an angel with a syringe from another realm and squirt onto your sound something that we can't buy here. It's not on Amazon. It's only available from Zion, you know? And so I just want to encourage those artists and worship leaders out there. Our craft is critical. God will need trustworthy psalmists for these last days to carry the gospel into places it is not, where it's very dark, and to keep the flame holy before the Lord in your worship services. And psalmists don't grow on trees, bro. We got to raise them up. And so Psalmist Mission, our worship cohort's been pretty special. So if there's interest in it coming to other regions, I now see the model. And it's not about expanding a brand, but I do know that the Father is going to have need of us in these last days. And it's been quite a journey.
Yeah. It sounds like this new single just came out, Adonai. It didn't really match up with your release schedule you had in your head. So does that mean maybe there's other music you've been making over these past few months and that was what you were planning to put out now? That is going to be coming out here very, very soon?
I'm sure, man. I got stuff cooking inside of me, no doubt. And especially after seeing, I feel like that old battle hymn, my eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. You know, like it felt like it melted my face off. But I saw things in Israel I can't even talk about, bro, of such biblical significance. I can tell you and all our listeners, Jesus is coming back very soon. This is not a time to screw around, and this is surely not a time to pollute or dilute the worship that he calls sacred. This is time to get it right. And if we do, 2 Chronicles 16:9 says, the eyes of the Lord look throughout the earth, looking to strengthen those hearts that are set on him. You don't want to get skipped by God because you got bomb vocals and sick guitar riffs, but you don't talk to him. You don't want to get skipped. You want to be able to say like Isaiah, here I am, Lord, send me. And and you know what? So much of that power happens in community too. So that's been some of the amazing we've seen in the community of bringing psalmists together with Psalmist Mission that I believe can roll out in many other communities. And, just simple worship. It really does matter to God.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff there. Think we got it all. So good hanging with you, catching up with you, learning about this new single and this wild trip you just got back from.
Yeah, no doubt, man. It was quite a journey, and it's been really special to see what God's been doing with Adonai, obviously, and being able to share it. And and both its relevance to that mourning nation, but also to us. I mean, it's clear we're not doing very good. I mean, our I think as what, 1 in 3, 1 in 4 of our kids are autistic, and our we're like the divided states of America. We can't say we're really crushing it right now. We got content through our ears. But this is a real time for us to come back to God, and the one who's delivered for centuries is still present to deliver now. So, Adonai, Deliverance Song.